I'm going to do that again. Welcome to the Better at Beach Volleyball podcast. My name is Mark Burrick, and we here at Beach Volleyball podcast talk about everything you need to become a better player, coach, fan, enthusiast. And we talk to great volleyball minds and athletes and try to glean a little bit of knowledge from them and their journey. And today we have a very special guest from Texas, coaching currently for 210 Beach Volleyball Club, where they just dominated at nationals. And his most important stat is that he is currently on the AVP tour, undefeated against Mark Burrick. So, without further ado, Stephen Roschitz. Steve, welcome, buddy. Congrats on your
Solid
undefeated
intro.
record.
Thank you.
Yeah. So, right now it's about 11 o'clock Texas time. You're living in Texas. You're coaching a lot.
Mm-hmm.
What was this morning like for you? What did you do just waking up?
This is the first weekend I've had off from traveling in about 7 weeks. So this morning I slept in.
Nice.
On my average morning, like on basically Monday to Wednesday, we get up and we train earlier, probably about 9. So I get up and I train with my partner Pete, 9 to 11, and that kind of time slot.
Pete
Or
Canoli?
yes, sir.
And
Canoli.
you guys, do you guys have a training group that you typically go with? Do you have a coach that you're working with? And where are you guys practicing in Texas?
We have a group. It's kind of rotating. We have some local guys. One guy, Brandon Severn, is getting into it. He's played a couple different qualifiers, and then a couple of other homies that come out and kind of hop in when they want to get in, I guess. So, and then there's a couple dudes from Austin who drive down every now and then. Kind of give us a rotating group from anywhere. Like, sometimes it's just me and Pete, and just two of us working on individual stuff. Sometimes there's 4 people, and like yesterday we had 8, so we had 2 courts rolling.
Nice.
And we practice at Sideliners, which is like a beach bar over here, and it's like half a mile down the road.
Great place.
Good place. It's got deep sand, and they let us have a key to the back door, so we just come in,
Nice,
hang out whenever we need to. So
and a heavy hometown crowd, from what I remember.
Yes, definitely.
They love their boys.
They do. It's a tough place to come play, especially when the beer starts flowing a little bit. So.
Oh man, it's so much fun.
Very fun.
I've always been like, like bring it on, audience, like hammer it, because if nobody's saying anything, it means they don't care. I'd rather people who are watching, at least they care. And if they're gonna hammer me all day long, like, yeah, I put myself out here. I'm ready for this. Bring it on.
Yeah, it's definitely fun.
Yeah, it is. And nice giant size cold beers afterwards. Never hurts. Now, do you think it's tough in Texas where you guys are? That's in San Antonio.
Yep,
Sideliners.
San Antonio.
Yeah. Is it tough there in that neighborhood to be, 2 of really the only guys who are competing? I guess Salila Tucker, if he comes around every now and then.
Yeah, he moved to like SoCal. He moved out y'all's way, I think. So he's no longer in Texas. Yep. There was our.
Is that even tougher? Like with the crowd, just how do you get your practices in at the level that you can play at?
That's always been the toughest part. Obviously, is like learning to compete in those very high. I would say top 25, top 30 matches. Those are the guys, like we don't see them every day. So when we go to compete, it's sort of like a one of one. Like we haven't seen so and so and so and so. We just have to figure out how to win from our side. So the first year we started playing, the first year I played in Texas, it was I was a blocker. So I was a full-time blocker, and I actually qualified with Leela in 2018.
Oh, nice.
And yeah, so it was like our cumulative height was 6 foot, because I'll give him 5'11". So he's 5'11", I'm 6'1", and it was just like figure out how to win, and we had a good chemistry because we played college ball together indoor. And once I got the points there and kind of convinced Pete to come out, we had some mutual friends in San Antonio that randomly happened. And like, he's like, hey, you got to meet my boy. Like, bring him out, bring him out. So he came out to play, and once we had decided to play, it was you know, how good can our offense be? You know, like it doesn't matter what they're serving at us, and how tough can I serve? Like it doesn't matter who you're playing if you can serve the ball extremely tough and you can side out on any ball.
Mm.
It's, you know, the rest of it's just battling and experience. So that was sort of the mindset is like we don't need to have, you know, the best training group. We don't need 8 of the top 30 dudes out here training. We can make it work with just us. And I feel like it also gives us a bit of an advantage because nobody sees us on a daily basis. It's like we show up to a tournament and they can maybe go look up on YouTube or Facebook like a match, but it's hard
Yeah.
to tell, you know, it's hard to tell what's going on from those. Like once you get in the game and, you know, Pete's huge and I'm hitting with both hands and it's all awkward and like it's just
Yeah.
it's sort of
Pete's
an
big
advantage
and he's so
sometimes.
calm when he's up there, you know, like
Yes.
he
Yeah.
just never freaks out, gets excited, all
Hmm.
just straight away. And that in itself is intimidating when you see somebody just like calmly going through whether they miss or they crush it, just like the
Hmm.
same reaction. You're like, what's going on in your head? Like, how am I
Yeah.
gonna fight this mental battle here? You got to give me
Hmm.
something that I can take advantage of. But I don't think you guys do. You know, you stay just mentally straight
Hmm.
on, straight edge, no matter where it's 18-18 or 1-1.
Yeah. I think there's again to the fact that we don't, you know, we don't train. It's not like, you know, you see some of these Cali matchups and there's emotion behind the game and it's like, you know, they've been training against each other or practicing and they know each other's tendencies and there's like this expectation to where you're supposed to know what to do to beat these guys and then when
Mm,
it doesn't happen that creates frustration. And for us it's like, you know, we know every good team is a good team and we're going to literally just do our best and it works out well most of the time, obviously. But like when we start playing like, you know, some of those top tier teams, it's like, you know, you can't make any errors. And if they have a
right.
better read on our tendencies, then that's where the tough games come in. So
Mm.
I
Do
would
you
love to see
do you
some of
do
those
any like
matchups sometimes.
do you do any of the film work? Like, do you jump on YouTube and take a look at who you might
Hmm.
play the next day? Like, you know, once you came out to Manhattan, were you like,
Hmm.
you know, we might play these teams. Let's just get a look at it, check out some film. Or are you one of those film addicts anyway? So you're like constantly watching.
I hate film. So I hate watching film. I I would say I never watch my own film, so I have a very good memory, like for matches, for my own movements. I can remember each and every ball that I messed up, and like
Mm,
that's just in here already. So it's inherent, like what we need to work on. And for I would say the top, and it was nice when we had Amazon Prime. So in like 2019, I would go through and I watched every single men's match that took place that's available to watch on there. So I watched
I
every
gotcha.
single match probably multiple times through and took notes based on, you know, the most accurate tendencies that we could find, what they did, who they were playing, you know, what kind of shots to get, what kind of blocker, like those kind of things for the top, you know, 30 players.
Hmm.
Those are like, you know, that's because that's who the target is on. But I would say,
Yeah.
and not to be rude, but anybody below that, like we want to handle like, you know, our physicality and speed of our game
Yeah.
tends to just get us through those matches. So I don't dig through Facebook, like, you know, Facebook lives and YouTube from 2017. I think it's like, you know, it's just too much for some of those games where you just need to go and play.
I
And
agree.
that's what
And
we
I
do.
think there's such a distinct difference between like
Mm-hmm.
top 40
Yep.
and then everything else.
Yes.
Um,
Uh-huh.
and
100%.
it's just I don't know if it comes down to calmness. I do think it comes down to consistency, and
Uh-huh.
I wouldn't say necessarily, I wouldn't say athleticism, because I play
Mm-hmm.
guys in open local tournaments everywhere who can for sure out jump me or faster than me,
Mm-hmm.
quicker than me. But I think it's just knowing consistent spots and almost like you're saying, just staying calm and knowing that your
Mm-hmm.
spots will work. But in
Mm-hmm.
your experience, what do you think is the biggest difference? Like when you can just sit there and essentially crush like a San Antonio local, right?
Mhm.
And then you go in and you play in your first main draw. What's the difference between the team on the other side of the net that makes that AVP
Mhm.
difference or the pro caliber difference?
Absolutely, what you said is consistency. But I think to dive into that a little bit more is it's first contacts. So if you're serving, it's how tough are you serving, and if you're serve receiving, it's where am I actually hitting this ball from. So I think a lot of people at the lower level overlook those two things a lot, and you end up serving somebody a free ball and they're out of system. Like a local guy, like I can standing float, see he's standing a certain way, put a ball over his right hip, and now we get a down ball.
Mm,
But against yourself, or like we played Eric and Avery the other day, it's like I can serve a beam to the corner that would probably be an ace or definitely out of system, and they'll handle it. And it's like, all right, well, that's the difference right there, because
mm.
they're always in system versus a team that's almost always out of system. So you have to pass and you have to serve tough. Like that is number one, I think.
Do you think that double A and open, we'll call like open players, and we'll call pro players,
Mhm.
pro players. Do you
Okay.
think that open players don't know that they're passing poorly? Do you think that they think that their passing is good enough if it's like somewhere in the first half of the court? Because there is that difference where you can
Hmm.
put so much service pressure and you're hoping, like as a pro, you're hoping maybe you can get this team out of system or a pass like that falls behind half court.
Hmm.
You're hoping for that like twice a set. And if you
Yes,
did that as a
literally.
server, you've
Hmm.
done your job.
Literally. Hmm.
And that's the expectation that we hold ourselves to as passers. It's like,
Hmm.
no, every single pass is going to be in system, and if I have one overpass, that's a bad set of volleyball for me. You
Hmm.
know, um,
Yeah.
do you think that open players just don't know, or they don't hold themselves to a standard, or they aren't at that level yet?
I think it's a combination of they're not dialed in specifically to where do I side out well from. So it's like, when you pass the 10-foot line, it's slightly over the shoulder. You might not side out well for that ball. And like, let's say you pass to the 4-foot line, you get sort of like a hitting lines ball. If
Mm,
that's your 90 percentile side out, like that's where you have to put the ball. But I also think that a lot of open teams are limited from their hand setting. So like for me and Pete, like we didn't pass particularly well our first year, like just decent up in the air. And the out of system contacts is what saves us. So like we would run out of system balls in system because like I'll literally handset from anywhere and Pete will literally handset the ball from
mm,
anywhere on the court. And I think that's sort of an equalizer. And you get to open and you see a lot of dudes running and bump setting that ball over the shoulder, ton of spin, 60 feet in the air. And instead of like track the ball down over the shoulder, push the ball exactly where it needs to be. And now that out of system contact feels in system. So I think open guys don't handle the speed well of certain float serves and jump serves. I think that's what gets them a lot of them out of system. Um, I don't think they see that speed on a consistent basis against other open teams. So when they see the speed from a pro team, it's like, their eyes open up a bit and it's like, oh, I just can't pass today. They think I just can't pass. Something's wrong. I just can't pass. I'm having a bad day, but it's actually being caused by the other person on the other side of the net. But when they're playing open teams, everything feels fine and they're passing pretty well because the serves are so much less aggressive, whether that be jump floats, whatever it is.
yeah. And I
Jump
think
serves,
that
it doesn't
kind of lets
matter.
them get lazier.
Yeah.
Like you don't have to
Mhm.
be instantaneously prepped to pass if somebody's going kind of low, slow float serves,
Mhm.
or if they're trying, maybe this has happened to you, but when I was back in New York and then like at the Pottstown Rumble, the grass, there are
Mhm.
people that come out there and they just try, they say, well, we're not going to beat them head to head, so we might as well just blast away our serves and see if we can get
Mhm.
aces. And then they're missing three-quarters of their serves. So there's
Yeah.
really no pressure
Mhm.
as a passer. And I think on the
Yeah.
other side of it, because they're allowed to be maybe lazier, a little bit slower to a lot of the serves that they see, and they're
Mm-hmm.
not demanding that they pass exactly to the spot that they want to pass to. Like
Mm-hmm.
the thought of, well, if it's in the air and up, it's okay. It's good
Yeah.
enough.
Yeah.
Instead of like, no, it's not. It's you
Mm-hmm.
need to specifically aim every pass. Um,
Mm-hmm.
and it's interesting when players do that, that they just change their strategy based on, or change their complete mindset based on who's on the other side of the
Who they're
net. You know,
playing.
they'll play against
Yep.
you and they'll just be like, well, we got to go balls to the wall serving.
Mm-hmm.
And then there's like zero pressure on you and you get to save energy
Yeah.
and you don't
Or
crank at the
it's
end of the
or
day.
it's the other way around, and they're popping in float serves to me, and I'm just walking to it, and now I can see everything downhill. I can see the set hit, like it's all very easy. Like you need to find that happy medium of pressure versus, and I don't know like statistically what ace to error ratio in sand is good. We try to go like 1 to 1. If I'm ripping jump serves and I miss, like I would like an ace or an out of system ball to follow. Like that's kind of how we are. Like, and if I'm not getting that, then I'll switch the serves into something different. But
Mm.
I think the first contact is absolutely huge, and it definitely separates those freak athlete open dudes and the pro guys. And that's like I'm literally learning that right now myself, and because we're cracking into that, that top tier, and the only reason we lose games is because whoever's getting served at makes a couple hitting errors. You make 2 hitting errors, you lose. You make,
Hmm.
somebody grabs one ball with their inside hand, you lose. One ball hits the line funny, you lose. Like that's
Right.
all it is. That's all it is.
Yeah. It always comes down to this 13, 15, 14, 16,
Mm-hmm.
and that one pass, one overset.
Mm-hmm.
That's the stuff that you can control.
Mm-hmm.
Hitting
Exactly.
errors. If somebody makes a crazy reach block,
Mm-hmm.
I'm going to give him a round of applause and I'm going to say, all
Yep.
right, now we'll start worrying about you
Mm-hmm.
or changing up so that you don't do it again, force you to stay
Yeah.
home a little bit. Do you think that there are any serves or things that just make your day easy when you are playing against open or lower level teams? Like, is there something that you're like, most open teams can't do this, so this will make my day easy up until at least like semifinals, quarterfinals?
Yeah. I think a lot of the times when we're getting float served, right,
Mm,
and especially when there's no wind too. So when there's wind, everyone wants to hit that jump serve,
yeah,
and I think the jump serves are like at that level. Like if you're not hitting them 50 miles an hour or whatever,
like a 75
that
mile an hour fastball. You're just like,
it
thank
it
you.
is the easiest ball, and you have somebody over there that's trying to rip a jump serve, and they'd be way better off float serving the ball. Like you get that jump serve and it's middle of the court, it has top spin, it's straight in the midline. You basically stick your arms out and it goes to target. I think a lot of the open guys, especially the smaller, like obviously not 6'8", but like anybody under 6'3", so typically defenders at the open level, they try to go back there and use the wind and crack that jump serve. But I think like that's the worst thing they can do unless you're putting like heat on the ball, like
Right.
unless you are really, really putting heat or some movement or, kind of like a hybrid, awkward spin and float ball.
Yeah.
Like
Or
you
like a
have
Justin
to,
Phipps kind of like short
yes,
top spin that falls in the
yes, like,
front 10 feet, or like
yes,
jumbos over you so that you have to take the
mhm,
step back and pass over your shoulder. But that
yes,
medium fastball right in your sweet spot, it's like,
no,
sorry,
no.
guy, you don't have a
You,
major
you
league
have
arm.
to, you have to crank on it. Like if you
Yeah.
don't crank on it, you have to put a float serve in the back 3 feet of the court and try to get the shoulders lifted. Like I think that's the number one mistake from a lot of those guys. They like, and we saw it a lot in Panama because the wind was a little bit crazy,
Hmm.
and like I was watching some games and there's just jump serves like you're not you have to put more body into it. You have to shoulder it more, or like there's
Yeah.
just not enough speed to create any out of system contact.
I like that you said put more body. Most people think like hit harder and they don't. You just gave yourself, instead of, you said you have to hit it harder, you
Mhm.
gave yourself your own physical coaching cue where you're
Oh
like,
yeah.
throw your chest, throw your body into it, and
Hmm.
that'll generate the speed. And that's
Hmm.
something that people can probably glean a little insight from. If you're going to try to hit a jump serve harder, and especially if in the
Hmm.
wind, when there's some top spin or there's some wind in your face, you want to throw that top
Hmm.
spin, throw your chest at the ball and let your arm follow. and
Mhm.
that'll start generating power. But I think a lot of people just try to like use only arm, and your
Mhm.
arm can only do so much.
No, it's just that creates the spin. I think if you want that heavy jump serve, you have to be hitting with your core needs to be involved. And like the
Mhm.
momentum, just your body weight hitting the ball, I think that's where speed comes from.
Oh
Like
yeah.
I'm not a huge dude, but I hit a pretty hard jump serve when I'm getting into it versus just snapping at top. Is just my shoulder is not going to get it done.
Right. You have I don't know if anybody's discussed this with you or told you,
Mhm.
but you have a pretty strange arm swing, I would say.
I've heard
It's
that
a
numerous
very
times.
super high elbow, and
Mhm.
it comes through like over the top. Whereas
Mhm.
most people, when they're teaching a pullback for a jump serve, it's this even
Mhm.
humorous across, like if you line up your clavicle or your shoulder bones, you pull your arm back in that same method, and then you snap so
Mhm.
that you do get a high elbow. But I think you use a ton of abs and a ton of lats, and you're one of the hardest hitters I've seen.
Mhm.
So how do you teach your arm swing, and do you think that this developed for any certain way, or you just don't notice it?
I for sure notice it, and I've heard that, and I've been asked that question a ton. And until my whole shoulder issue thing came along, it was sort
Hmm.
of I thought that's just kind of how it was. I think anatomically, I think that shoulder position was patterned because of the way that my rib was set up. So
Hmm.
because it was pulling in a certain direction, I don't think I had the range of motion that most people have. So I created a different movement as far as opening with my torso a little bit more to
Hmm.
allow that elbow to get higher versus a lot of people can just pull that shoulder back, and I wasn't able to do that, I think. So
Huh.
I think it was patterned based off of, that what was an issue, and now it's sort of helping me out a bit because um, I I didn't specifically train. I played volleyball when I was younger, but at a lower level, and then a little bit of club, and there wasn't a ton of like private lessons where I was drilling through a certain swing. That was just kind of what it was. So I always just had this, this shoulder
Oh,
canning from throwing, through baseballs and just being a generalized athlete as a young kid.
right.
That's just the pattern that kind of came out of you know, my upbringing, I guess. But it
And then I
wasn't
think a
a
lot of coaches
choice.
see an athlete, they'll see somebody like you be able to
Mhm.
jump, rip the
Mhm.
ball, and they'll be like, "That's good enough. It's at a high level. What's my next like
Mhm.
problem?" So they won't go and
Hitting
correct
it
you to
in,
be
hitting
perfect
the
because
ball
you're
in.
already outperforming people.
Yeah.
So why would we like correct that when it's kind of
Mhm.
it's working and I have bigger
Mhm.
issues because I need somebody now who can actually set this kid. So now they go and they worked with their setter more than they ever worked on your arm swing when you have like a
Mhm.
major league power
Mhm.
capacity. And I it sucks that some coaches don't have the time or resources to be able to develop that. I think especially in
Mhm.
boys volleyball where you don't have, you got one coach at
I
a
played
D1
18s
level.
for 5 years. So it's like I played 18s for five because it's Kansas City. So I grew up in Kansas City, and I played 18s. I think when I was 13, like my first year of high school, I played a little bit, and 18s, and then it was 18s again, and then 18s again, and then again. We didn't have age division, so it was just go in there and get whooped by all the older kids, and then slowly catch up. And
Mm.
that was my club experience growing up. So
Was
it
there
wasn't
only
like
one
a
team in all of Kansas?
yes,
Were you on the one
yes,
team in the whole
yes.
state?
There was another team in Wichita, which is like 2 hours south.
Okay.
So it was I think one or two other boys teams in the state that I knew of, and definitely no other teams in the city. And that was for Mavs. So Mavs had a single boys team, like one boys team. And but now they've grown. They have like 20, and it's really
That's
cool
good.
actually to see that they're killing it. Teams in open and like high level volleyball players there now, which is super cool
That's
to see.
it's so nice seeing a little bit of growth. It's still not
Hmm.
happening at the college level except for like D3, where D3
Yeah.
is really bumping up. And honestly, there's
Hmm.
D3 teams that are taking out D1 teams. So it doesn't look like the
Hmm.
whole financial thing is really mattering just because
No.
maybe because there's a smaller pool of athletes in the juniors. And so,
Hmm.
it's more diversified and you don't have parents
Hmm.
doing everything they can and, taking out
Yeah,
third and
it's
fourth
not quite.
mortgages to pay for
No,
club. But
no, it's not quite getting there yet. They haven't got to that level yet in men's at all. But it's definitely, you see some of the people coming out of the pipeline, these younger kids, especially in sand too now, out of like the SoCal and um, some of those areas. These kids are very good at a very young age, which is really cool to
yeah,
see on the boys' side.
yeah, I'm still waiting for the height and athleticism to come with the skill from like the juniors and USA beach pipeline. We're still not grabbing
Yeah.
the potentially 6'8" kids who can
Mhm.
pass. And for sure, we're losing a lot of the great volleyball athletes to indoor because who
Mhm.
wouldn't choose $1 million guaranteed contract over the potential of losing $1,000 every weekend? Like,
Playing for dozens and dozens of dollars.
no, I love begging sponsors to
Yeah.
to send me some protein powder so that I could post them
Mhm.
on Instagram. Like,
Yep.
yeah, not the way to do it. Um,
That's where
but
the grind is, though. That's why we. I don't know. That's a whole other topic conversation. Is why
yeah,
we do it.
yeah, for sure. And then this season with more tournaments from the AVP, but the
Mhm.
same prize
Well,
money that's always been
yeah.
available, and it's just
Mhm.
like, yeah, it would just kind of doubled the expenses, or you just got the same expenses that
That's
you've had every
exactly
year.
what.
It's just now there's an
Yes.
AVP label on it, but that money always existed for us. It's just
Mhm.
now there's an AVP on top of it. So I'm still
Well, now
waiting
there's
for
incentive.
actual
Yeah.
opportunity. You know, yeah.
Yeah,
Now
and
there's
that's a
incentive with the
you have
points.
incentive to go to Muskegon, and like not to be rude, but I never would have gone. Like I don't know. I think we're gonna go this year to that
Hmm.
one. That's a qualifier for Atlanta, maybe or something.
Yeah, maybe.
Um, I was like, I would never, ever, even if it was like a good purse, AVP next there, I would never go to Muskegon. I don't have any interest
You
in
have
going
no
to that part of the
desire
country.
for cheese curds.
No, no. And we went to Wapaka. We went to Wapaka in 2020, and it was a bucket list tournament, but like that
Yeah,
part of the country, it's just far away, and it's just like no.
it's hard to get to. They're
It is.
not easy places to get
It's a
to. Yeah,
logistical nightmare because you get there and then you probably have to drive a little bit to get wherever you're going. So it's
yeah,
like airplane, car rental, hotel, like everything in between.
yeah.
So
The laydown is immediately like $1,100,
yeah,
and
minimum.
and if you don't take it at minimum third, it's a
Hmm.
huge loss.
It is
Otherwise, you're breaking equal, and then we could talk like economically about opportunity cost of what you could have
opportunity cost.
done
Hmm.
somewhere
Hmm.
else. But I guess we can
Yes.
all agree that we're not playing AVP to be financially secure.
No,
You know?
definitely not. But I'm also not paying to play it. I'm not.
Yeah,
My intention when I started a couple years ago was not to, be funding a, hobby. It
hmm,
wasn't like this is something I'm gonna drop 10 grand a year on this, and if we win, it's great. If we lose, it's totally cool. It's like no, I want to be successful. I want to be in the black as far as
right.
spending goes. I want to make sure that it's not becoming something that is detracting,
Yeah,
and that's
I
why
think
I feel
some
like this
I
it's a
think some
tough
players
system.
should hold just a separate bank account. I would
Hmm.
love to see one person take all of their volleyball expenses and then like, well, what do you include in that? Like, you got to include coach
Hmm.
fees, travel fees. Um, does your protein powder then go under volleyball expense? Probably
Hmm.
could, but it would be interesting to see everybody's just like actual bank account starting from, all right, give it $1,000 at the
Yeah.
beginning of the year and see what happens.
Instead of where you just see the winnings or whatever, it's
Right.
yeah.
Yeah.
I think I for tax purposes that's I keep track of that stuff. So by the
Hmm.
end of the year, I should have a somewhat accurate
That'll be fun. We'll do
meter about
another
what we
episode
have.
in November.
Yeah, yeah. And we'll see where we're at. I'll let y'all
Or two.
know. And
Um,
my mom does my taxes, so if she sees this, she's gonna see that and be like, mm-hmm.
yeah. Yeah. Um, well, okay. So do you think that there was a big turning point where you decided that you could go AVP, or was like when the AVP kind of showed up and you and Tucker were ready to rock, you just signed up, or was it a decision to say, I'm going pro?
It was a 100% decision. So I was going to school in Iowa at Graceland University, and I met a friend of mine who runs San Antonio Juniors now. It's a club, it's a volleyball club down here. And basically, I graduated from college, and he was like, come on down, like you can run some private lessons, like live on the couch and like see if you like it down here. And, so I moved down to San Antonio, like, not permanently, but I came down here and spent a few weeks and kind of peeped the scene. Like I've watched AVP since I was like 7, right? And like
Okay.
that's always what I wanted to do. Like I've always AVP. Like I've seen that, when you see the old ones with the Crocs in the background and the Xbox One banners, like that. I grew
All
up
the
watching
refs
all.
wearing Crocs.
I used to watch those games like religiously, and so that was always something that I like, really wanted to do. I wanted to, be a part of that. So I found out logistically what it took. And it was like, this is when, local points, like if you had 300 points, that was a lot, right? So
Hmm.
it was like for local level. So I was like, okay, well, how do you get these points? Looking at the tournaments, I was like, okay, it's either, you go do the SoCal tournaments, or you live in Florida, or, I was like, Texas, TBT. So the TBT series in Texas, they did local points for opens. And then they used to have it's like a series where, if you won the series, you got a bid to Manhattan. So like
Okay. Hmm.
if you had the best finishes out of the 5 series, you got like a wild card bid into Manhattan. And that's when they were doing I don't remember the draws, but it was like, big draws, 32 draws or something.
Yeah.
And I was like, okay, so that's how you do it. That's how you get in. What does that look like? So I moved to San Antonio to be closer. It's warm year round. It's kind of centralized. I was like, I can do AVP next stuff from San Antonio. I was like, I can do that. I can make that happen.
Right.
So I moved down, started coaching a little bit, and I started coaching, and I got an offer at a small D1 college here. So I started coaching indoor volleyball at the Division 1 level, and that my beach plans kind of took a backseat, and I did that for 2 years, and by I would say halfway through my second year coaching it was a Incarnate Word. It was like it hit me. I was like, I need to go do this now, because like coaching college volleyball is it's like a trap. Like you get in, you love it, you start recruiting people, you want to, you want them to stay, and you want to build the program, and that's years. It's not
Hmm.
like you don't go in for a year and just be like, okay, like that's it. You're
Right. There's
building
not too
programs
much
for
change you
years.
can really make in a single
No,
year.
no. So it's the long term game. So that I was coaching. I got that job when I was 23, and I coached 2 years. So at 25, I was like, okay, I'm gonna give myself like a real chance at like doing something like kind of a dream of mine, right? Like this is something I've always wanted to do, and it's obtainable. I didn't know if I was any good yet. I hadn't really trained. Like I played indoor. I was pretty good at indoor, and sand was something that I hadn't even really got into yet. So I spring season hit on year 2, and I quit coaching, and then they actually cleaned the staff out like a week later anyway. So it was a good call. Um,
Jesus.
yeah, so that was a good call.
Well, wait,
And
could you have gotten like severance pay if you didn't quit 2 weeks ahead of
you
time?
know,
Oh,
I think about how it happened, and I think that was probably part of it. But I was also
damn.
24 and some change, and that wasn't something I was
Yeah, and as
thinking
a
about.
assistant college coach
Yeah.
for a non-giant
Hmm.
program, you're making what, three,
Exactly.
4,000 for the semester. So
Yeah, I don't know. It was, I think for the year it was 35,000 or something like that.
oh,
So it was
nice, that's
like,
solid.
yeah, it was a real job, and
Yeah,
so they would have had to probably pay me something. But anyway, that was already decided. I was like, I'm not coming back for post spring. So that was
hmm,
like, okay, now how do I sustain doing this? So I started coaching for 210 Beach. And Jason, the guy who runs it, is super understanding about, sort of following that dream. Obviously, it's he wants us to be, high level coaches, and
yeah,
there's nothing more high level than going and trying to play AVP, right?
right.
So that was like the logistical plan. And then it was, Leela moved to Houston randomly, and I was like, dude, you want to play these tournaments? And
Right.
the first tournament we played, we went 0-2 in a local open. We got smoked by, I literally couldn't hit a ball in. Like I'm telling you, like 6 feet out, but really hard. Like that was, my first tournament, 0-2, 80-mile-an-hour swing into the bar area. So that was my experience. And then it was like, all right, well, how do I, what do I do now? Okay, I need to be able to set. Okay, I need to
Yeah.
be able to hit downs. And it was like every week was like a different challenge of I suck at everything. Now I'm going to have to figure out how to do these at a very high level.
What do you think at that time was the hardest thing for you to learn or add to your game? Like once, after that 0-2 and then the transition from 0-2 in your open to eh, getting your first
Mhm,
AVP. What was the
mhm.
hardest skill or technique that came? And what was that process like?
I think I typically pick up things pretty quick, just athleticism wise. But so like I would go out and literally set like 200 balls. I would set a bench up sideways and hit a ball off the bench and set. So I would do that like, for an hour straight. So setting like hand setting the ball in a, you know, 2 foot window. Like I
Mhm.
was like, I'm gonna whoever I play with. And this is before I was playing with Leela. I was like, whoever I'm playing with, like I'm gonna make sure that I can make them side out at a high level. Like it's like I don't care if I'm playing with somebody that's 5'7" and needs the ball in this perfect window to score, like their hitting window's this big. I was like, I'm gonna hand set this ball right there. That way I get served. That was like my goal. I was like, I want to get served because I was, I had a heavy shoulder. I knew I could side out, but the only way that I'm going to get that first ball is if my partner, whoever it was, is siding out at a high level. So I made sure the first thing I did was like make sure that I could hand set from anywhere on the court, over the shoulder, facing, back set, like in just whatever location, perfect location. So I spent a ton of time over the shoulder set, out of system set. Like doesn't matter where it came from.
To me,
And I
who
think
is a
that was
coach of a
hard.
lot of players, like it's so important for everybody to hear
Mhm.
that you were alone.
Mhm.
You were hitting against a bench, the ball
Mhm.
rebounds back to you, and you draw something or hang something on a net or draw like a circle in the sand and you make it land there. And you hold
Yep.
yourself to your own tiny little like standard to make sure
Mhm.
that you can actually get it done. And you don't need a court for that. You don't need a
Mhm.
partner for that. And like for our online students, that's what they realize within the first week is like,
Mhm.
oh, all these drills that you guys are giving us, we don't actually need a court. Like, no,
Mhm.
80% of what you need to do is just doing it on your own, feeling your touches, developing the ball control, being able to set. And all of the drills that we give, like right now, we're doing our setting course online.
Mhm.
And all of our players are taking videos of themselves doing the footwork for setting on the street in front of their
Mhm.
house. Like the video demos that I give them are from my garage. And I say, look,
Right.
you can do this at home. You don't
Mhm.
need four people and a coach. Is that an advantage? Yeah. But
Mhm.
you also get, I don't know, 5, 6 times the reps doing it
Oh yeah,
alone
easily.
with a bench.
Mhm.
Were there any keys that made like setting easier for you or any advice that you would give to somebody for setting other than reps as much as you can?
Yeah, so I think a lot of people, especially people who are sort of cautious about hand setting because they don't want to double or get embarrassed, like they don't want to go get called at a double B for doubling, right? Or
Hmm.
whatever it is. A lot of people focus on their hands. And I would say like a good set starts with your feet. Like your feet are more important than your hands for sure. Like being able to get in the correct position and have your balance in a certain way where your whole body is setting into a motion. Like my set starts with my feet, through my legs, through my core, and then like your hands are the last thing that really influence the ball. And that's where, reps come in. You can sit against a wall and, do this, whatever your release is. You can do that, a million times and not get tired. And like that, you could get a million hand reps. But
Yeah.
like the footwork that you're talking about is what actually creates good angles. So if I'm setting from 10 feet off, I need to take 2 steps, make sure my right foot is planted really hard. So I'm pushing off that right foot. My whole body is letting go of the ball.
Mm-hmm.
And I think a lot of people are too concerned about their hands and not concerned enough about their body positioning, in relation to where I need the ball to go and what direction the ball's taking me. So I need to change the direction. It's not my hands changing the direction, it's my whole body changing the direction. And until they change the hand setting rules, of course. But
Hopefully.
if they're going to continue to let us sort of drop the ball here,
Mm-hmm.
like it's about your feet. It's like, indoor, you jump square up and it's just pop, right? But in the sand, your whole body is sort of that anchor, and you can just really release it into wherever you need it to go, because you can, from here, you can just let it go and you have your entire body throwing it wherever you need it. So I think footwork is key, and making sure that you understand angles as far as, where am I setting on the court? Where does it need to go? I need my whole body to face that direction so it goes where it's like supposed to go. And that was a big thing for me, like, getting away from this and
The
getting
indoor
into
flash.
and getting into that, whole body release where you can see the momentum building and throwing the ball versus just running underneath it. And like that was not it for me. I couldn't locate properly that way. And until I started really slowing down and, anchoring, I couldn't do it. So
I like
that was
that
key,
that
number
the
one.
word that you say for your set, anchoring, like
Mm-hmm.
making sure that your feet are grabbing the ground and they're in there
Mm-hmm.
solid. You're not just hopping or skipping through it.
Mm-hmm.
There's a few high level setters that I know just that come from indoor, but they still use that kind of skip or toe
Mm-hmm.
through the ball. They jog
Mm-hmm.
through it, and it's like, this is different. We're not trying to move as quickly as we can. There's still rhythm in
Mm-hmm.
indoor, but like you're really
Yeah.
just chucking it through windows as fast as
Yes.
you can. There's still rhythm, so I don't want to take away
Mm-hmm.
anything from indoor setters, but
No, it's definitely different.
the rhythm for beach, right? Like
Mm-hmm.
stopping, showing somebody that you're about to set, then having that consistent hand rhythm, and then
Mm-hmm.
releasing at a very similar speed so that they can
Mm-hmm.
be in their own hitting rhythm every time.
Yeah.
That's it's everything. And for people who are trying to get to the ball, I think they'll like take off before they get there, and then they'll float through the zone where they're supposed to set instead
Mm-hmm.
of like running low, stopping under the ball, being strong with their legs,
Mm-hmm.
then setting.
Exactly.
Yeah, That's
And you're fighting your own body momentum. Like if you're going through the zone, like you're having to fight your forward momentum as well as the wind, and like, you're running through that contact and trying to chuck up a ball. Like it's a lot tougher. Like when you're fading away, a lot tougher. When you're jump setting, it's a lot tougher. If you're stopped on the floor, it becomes very easy. So that's always my key is, and when I'm teaching, especially our young ones now at 210, like we have 11 and 12-year-olds that are just saucing the ball. They chuck, and the ball's this big for them, but it's like, they hand set everything, because that was something we told them, like when they first came in. We probably had them at 10, I think. And little 10-year-olds just chuck that thing, get your body under it, chuck the ball. So as they're getting older, it's like it's just second nature for them to get there and push it. It's really cool, actually.
so awesome. It
Yeah.
makes me. I always get kind of fired up and I rip on people. I'm a little bit unforgiving, I would say, when people they're like, "Oh, well, women don't set because their hands are too small," and I'm just like,
Mm-mm.
"You you need to stop talking about pretty much everything right now." Like, the fact
Yeah.
that you can say that, and then I'll go and I'll bring it to like my niece or my nephew, and I go, "Look, 8 years old, sauce. Like
Yeah.
she's
Normal
got tiny
volleyball
hands
too.
too." Yeah.
It's not a small ball either. It's just it's this big for them, but they can still set it. Like it's fine.
Oh man. Yeah, I like that the anchoring
Mm-hmm.
discussion for setting. And I find that a lot of people, when they're pursuing a ball that's going towards the net, they still
Mm-hmm.
they're still drifting to the net after they set. So they have
Mm-hmm.
this like little sideways translation it's gonna kill their accuracy. It's like you're always moving
Mm-hmm.
sideways, or maybe 30% of the time you're moving sideways while setting instead of establish your feet, hold,
Yeah,
then set.
exactly.
That's huge for accuracy.
Mm-hmm.
Did Did anybody show you that? Was there somebody who had like a big influence on your setting, or at least your career in general, or was it just you gonna getting out and getting reps?
Um, so the first person I trained with, so his name is Lucas Galmarini. He played on the EVP tour, and he's from Argentina, but he lives in Kansas City now. And he's I don't want to, he's probably 5'9", I would say, but ball control guy. Like I would go out there for two. When I was 18, 19, I helped him build a sand court in his backyard, right? So
Oh,
I was coaching for KC Power, and met him through that, and we built a sand court in his backyard. He's like, all right, I will, I'll help teach you sand if you help me build this, right? I was like 18. It was summer. I was like, hell yeah, let's go. Like, so,
it's a
basically
great deal.
manual labor. Yeah, manual labor. And that was like the first time I had like private lessons. So he taught me a lot about like, the lower hand contact, making sure shape the ball, like all those hand cues. Those are from him. So that's where I sort of learned the hand release of how to set. He was a more traditional square up, get around the ball and square to your target kind of guy. That I did not. I completely went away from that, and I square to the ball, not to my target. So that was
Hmm. So
probably
currently,
from,
could you explain that? Like you square to the ball, but not your target now. So you're
yeah.
more
So,
comfortable setting over your shoulder now.
oh yeah,
Okay.
absolutely. I try not to go too long with this because I could talk a while about it, but basically, if you look at USAV and like the I think P1440 training, and like basically all the high level people will tell you, get your feet around the ball, square to your target, and release the ball straight on. And I was just talking to Pete about this yesterday, I think. But I think when you're taking a contact, like so the ball's coming over your shoulder, it's harder for you to track and manipulate. If you're staring directly at the ball and it's coming into your hands, it's a lot easier for you to manipulate. So the set itself is a little bit harder, but if you have good proprioception, you can understand like your relation to things.
Hmm.
Like it's not a hard thing to set a ball just over my shoulder this way. The hard thing is, having a consistent ball that's coming into my window sideways. So I'm watching the ball with one eyeball. It's coming into my hand sideways, and now I'm having to take off momentum off of my opposite hand and then push a ball straight with no spin. When you're facing the ball, it comes directly into your hand. It's there's nothing easier than catching a ball thrown right to your face, right?
Hmm.
It's like if you were sitting at your desk and someone threw a ball from the side and you had to catch it in your hands,
Right.
that's harder to do, right? So, and that's the same thing I teach our juniors now is, you don't have to square to your target. If you square to the ball and you get sort of a wide base with your feet, you can push off that back foot and create the same exact angle, but it also eliminates a lot of doubles because the ball's coming straight into your hands, and now you're releasing sideways evenly instead of having to go over the shoulder and straight.
Hmm.
It creates that angle for you.
So easier catch, maybe more difficult release.
Yeah, yeah,
Um,
and the release is the easier part of those two components. It also, with the current hand setting rules, right? It's like the the transfer, the carry, the lift, like those are all a lot harder to call when you're facing the ball and you release even. If
hmm.
you're taking the ball over the shoulder, I think you're more liable to double. The double is the easiest call. So people see that ball spin, they call it almost immediately at like any level except for very young juniors. But you could be at a double B, and if the ball spins, they're gonna be like, oh, that's a double, right? If you transfer it, it's
Right.
like, well, you have to tell me why I transferred it. Like if you're
Yeah.
going to call one of those, you have to tell me why. So like
Hmm.
it's also sort of catering to the current hand setting rules of I rather lift, transfer, or carry the ball versus double. And
What do you mean by
basically,
transfer?
like when it comes down here and you let it go,
Oh,
like
a lift.
yeah, a lift. But I've heard
Yeah.
it. We call it in Texas. They like to like the a transfer is what I've heard. But like basically, it's coming in on my right shoulder,
Mm,
and I'm dropping, and it's coming out of my left shoulder. It's
okay.
like that motion,
Yeah.
but it's a lot harder to call. Like those are harder to see than you do this, and the ball is coming out like that. You know it's a double. So
No, I like the logic of that because
yeah.
100%. Like when you're playing defense,
Mhm.
you would face where the ball is coming from, right? You're playing catch
Yeah.
with me, you're going to face where the
Mhm.
ball is coming from. And then you could take two metaphors easily there and you could say, hey,
Mhm.
if we're playing catch, would you face me or would you face sideways? You'd face me, right? Because it's easier to
Right.
catch.
Mhm.
And then the metaphor that goes to like the USA way of teaching and the way we teach it better at beach where you square up
Mhm.
is, well, let's take a look at basketball players. When they
Mhm.
release, aren't they always facing the basket or as much as possible? You know,
Always.
so both sides of that are pretty valid arguments, and
Mhm.
it's I I've never heard that, but I like it.
Mhm.
It makes sense
It's
when
different.
the ball's approaching you, and that's why
Mhm.
people have to change if they're doing the square up to target route. It's why they have to change their positioning to the ball because you have to
Yes.
approach from behind the ball and move forward so
Mhm.
that you're actually like the ball gets into that window and then you go through
Yeah.
it.
And I think a lot of people that square up, I think in those sort of scramble or like a little bit lower ball or uncomfortable positions, they
Mm,
default to the bump set because they don't have the footwork to get around and square.
yeah.
They're not as confident in that footwork and their ability to get there quickly and let the ball go in the right way. But if you're telling them to set offline, they're very comfortable running to a low ball and just chucking it, right?
Hmm.
Like if I can see a ball right in front of my face and get my hands to it versus having to run around the whole ball and now set it over here, it becomes a lot more of a confidence thing, I think. And that's a huge thing for hand setting is just being confident enough to get your hands and feet there and throw it. Um,
Great.
and if it's offline, you don't think as much. If you're setting in that more strict, square to your target, there's all that footwork that goes into it. And it's like, oh, I'm not fast enough. I'm just going to bump set.
Yeah.
And I think a lot of people shy away from the handset when they have a more strict, approach into it. And
Do
that's
you
why we
think that
teach the
they
young
should
ones
call?
offline.
I I'm down with
Mm-hmm.
it.
Mm-hmm.
Um, and either way, like they are going to get to a USA volleyball tryout, and
Mm-hmm.
then they're going to get some looks. But if they can at
Mm-hmm.
least explain it, so long as you're explaining it to them, and
Yeah.
they're like, "Well, this is the way that we do it," and if they're setting sauce anyway,
If it goes to target.
there you go. Right?
Uh-huh. Mm-hmm.
Hmm, cool. Hmm.
You were asking, do you think they should call what? The
Um, do you think that they should call doubles in B, double B, A, double A? Because there's such. I think that
no.
it hurts volleyball when people
100%.
don't try to handset because they're afraid to lose a point for
100%.
the first some people for their entire careers, right?
Yes.
Like somebody will play starting at 20 years old and play until she's 60 and she'll be like, I never
Mm-hmm.
handset. It's been 40 years and I haven't handset. Why would you?
Mm-hmm.
And it's like,
Right.
now you are
Mm-hmm.
useless as a handsetting coach.
Mm-hmm.
So you can't share or grow the game, and to me
Mm-hmm.
that's you volunteered for a lack of growth in the game when you
It's
don't do that.
a it's sort of that's the argument is like, the double B's in Texas, they call stricter hands than in FIVB. That's like the joke is, FIVB, they just and it's gone, right? I think, and this is the same for indoor too. There's a lot of discussion for indoor like collegiate is do we just get rid of the double?
Aren't they
Um,
doing that for juniors next year? I saw in a volleyball. I'm a part of a
Supposedly,
volleyball moms Facebook group,
yeah,
but I saw that they
there
said that they're not going to call doubles indoor next
that
year.
is the the path that I think USAB is going. I think if the ball does not if it doesn't give you a clear advantage to double, so like if I double a ball, it's not a good set. It's not where I wanted it to go.
Mm,
It's probably not the right height. It's probably not the right location. Like it doesn't benefit me to double. But if my partner saves it and scores, like, that should be part of the game, I think. I think if let's say you're jumping backwards and I think the lift is an unfair advantage. You're out of position. I've now lifted the ball and put it where it's supposed to be. Like that is an unfair advantage. But if my hands
yeah,
are high and I contact it, it's not creating advantages for me. Like if the ball is mishandled, it's mishandled. So it's a worse set than it should be. I'm already penalized. So if my
yeah.
hitter takes care of it, I think I think that should be part of the game. I think if it creates an unfair advantage, they should call some kind of ball handling. So like obviously lifting the ball,
Mhm.
or throwing it from back behind your shoulder, or whatever it is. But
And then
I
the
don't
the
think a
the
double is.
classical real guys will just like come back with the argument like, yeah, well, that's not a set, so that is an
Mhm,
advantage. Like setting ugly is already an advantage because it allows you
mhm,
to be less athletic. And it's like, to me, no, it doesn't allow you to be less athletic. It just
mhm,
changes the nature of the skill.
mhm.
That's it,
I th-
and so
yeah,
you,
yeah.
you get that way. But there's hardcore people out there who love the way hand setting has been. They
Mhm,
believe in like the path of attrition almost that you have to go through just to be able to have a quality set. But then
mhm,
also it confuses fans.
mhm,
Like my wife is still like cheering for a point while everybody
mhm.
else is going, oh, and she's like, what happened?
Yeah, the
And,
ball
and she's
went.
been watching this stuff for 7 years. Yeah.
Yeah.
Um, so it hurts the game
Mhm,
that we don't have a clear cut way to determine it.
mhm,
Um, and I think that the skill needs to be opened for lower
mhm.
levels so that people are willing to try it. And I just don't think that at the B level, I think there should be zero doubles called no matter what.
Yeah,
And then it's like, okay, now uh, that you'll learn how to control it way better
yeah. If
once
you
you
keep doing it.
understand the hand rhythm. Yeah.
Yeah, and once you keep doing it, it's like. But again, like let's say you play in your first B tournament, and like it's your first tournament ever playing, and you go up with two hands, and the ball has backspin, and it flies 12 feet off the net. Like you've already been penalized. Your partner's
Hmm.
running backwards. If they free ball it over, like good job by you. But like, why is that an automatic point? Why
Right.
why is a new skill that somebody probably hasn't done? Why does that count? The other guy on the other side of that, like, we're not playing that ball because it's not clean. I think it's just like you don't see that. What other sport has a ball handling call like that?
I'm only thinking like like a
Basketball, a
carry in
carry.
basketball.
I don't know. But like, imagine you hit a bad serve in tennis and it still goes in, but the guy's like, nah, that was ugly. Like, we're gonna take
Right.
it.
You
Like,
can hit like the frame of the racket, and it's
yeah,
still perfectly legal. They're just like, yeah,
yeah,
but you hit the frame of the racket, so it's not going to be a good
yeah.
shot.
It's
Like
like I
every
didn't
now and then
mean
it'll work
to.
out in your favor, but you're not going to
Yeah,
intentionally do it because it's risky.
exactly, exactly. So
Mm.
I think they should just get rid of it. And even at pro level, if it creates an unfair advantage, something, right? Lift, double, whatever you want to call it. But I
Nice.
don't think, you know, I don't think that it doesn't positively benefit you when you mishandle the ball. So it's
I would
already
agree.
penalized. Yeah.
So for the people out there listening right now, if you're in the
Mhm.
comment section, or if you want to throw it in the comments on the recorded podcast, just go ahead and give us your opinion. Like to hear if you think that setting is strict enough, if it should be stricter, if you think that the AVP and the FIVB you're getting too loose, or do you think that we should just do away with doubles as far as a penalty call? Uh, be interested to know where the percentages are on it. I know a number of people that are just like absolutely not, like keep it as strict as possible. It's a skill that you have to earn. Um, but I can see that it can hurt the sport and it miscues fans where you get this confusion once a play happens. But then some people then argue like, all right, well, half of the population doesn't understand like football, and it still becomes a great sport, right? You're like, what is this, 5, 10, 15 yards for what? Who did what? So
Yeah.
I don't know. We'll see, and we'll see what people say
It's the
in those
age old
comments.
debate.
Yeah. Um, All right, just a couple more questions for you, Steve.
Mhm.
Wondering if there is anything right now that you and Pete or just you are currently putting into your game, or something that you're working on or focusing on at practice, and how you're doing it.
Um, for me, Pete is working on specifically just blocking. He's a very, very good shot blocker. Probably his basketball background, but his timing and if there's a ball high over the net, I don't even have to move typically because he's gonna swat it. But he's working on sort of that hand positioning and shaping to those hard driven lower seam balls. So
Okay.
that's something that he's actively every time we go out and practice is something he's shooting for.
Is it like hard driven? both hands going, or just the individual hand placement that he wants to be covering
Say
wide or more narrow, or just more versatile?
I would say versatile as far as, seeing that late angle. It's like, let's say you're blocking a ball and he's swinging inside your left hand, like, dropping the left hand, but also bringing the right as well. Like,
Mm,
you've made the read. So now it's more about, okay, I know this ball's going here. Like the last second adjustment where you're putting both hands into that clamp, um, and being able to press both without having that, sort of flat tooling surface. That's he's 6'7" and he jumps well. So it's a thing
he
where
is
he
that
can
big,
literally
huh?
press.
Yeah,
Yeah, he's pretty
he's
big,
big.
but
Yeah.
he can press. It's just, the hand manipulation and the timing to put it in the right zone. Like this is something that I'm a small blocker, but that's the only part I do well is, taking away that if you hit in that small semicircle up across the top of the net, I'm going to probably at least touch it or block it. Like
Yeah,
that's good
similar.
hand
I think that comes
manipulation.
from our defense. Like, you can see what somebody's doing, so you're like, oh, no, I have to be over here.
Yeah, I'm
Um,
sticking my hands in the way. Yeah.
it's
I
tough for
think.
people who jump; they get stuck
Mhm.
in the air,
And they have
and
all
they're
this,
like, "This
they
is
have
where
all
I'm
this
blocking."
range. Yeah.
Yeah.
And they end up here. So we're really working on taking away those, those lower angles because he does really well at the upper angles.
Do you think if a guy is 6'1", that they should be reading and changing their hand position as a blocker? Like, so for smaller blockers out there who are like high double A, do you think they should be more positional, or would you tell them as well, hey, if you see it, go get it? Because if you see it and you go get it, and you're Andy Mole and you're 6'10" with a
Mhm.
40-inch for, whatever,
Right.
yeah, of course, because you got both shoulders already over the net and you're still
Yeah.
penetrating when you're reaching outside.
I think, and this is my personal stance, and I did qualify once as a blocker, so it puts me, I think I can talk
So
about
you
it.
know what you're
But
talking about, yeah.
oh yeah. I think smaller blockers, like you almost need to ditch the one, twos, threes, and fours calls, and focus on taking away like hard driven. So if I'm a smaller blocker and I'm going and blocking a line, it's like you jump on the line. Not only are you probably giving up high line, but you're probably giving up the angle. Like you're giving up multiple shots. So as an undersized blocker, we run it's our middle finger call, but it's basically a ball block, right?
Mhm.
It's I'm gonna read the ball and I'm gonna take away the hard driven. Whatever I see is gonna be hard driven. So if I see somebody, committing their body weight to the line, I'm gonna go dive and grab line. Like I don't want them to hit
Sure.
on me. The only ball I can effectively take away is the hard driven low tape ball, right?
Where does your defender
Um,
stand when you're doing that?
so
Because the
when
argument would
we
be like, well, then they're going to get burnt down
mhm,
the line when you said that you should
mhm.
have blocked line, and what am I supposed to do as a defender? So
Yeah,
how do you as
so
your defender play that?
we play it, they as a defender you can see the play developing. So when you see your blocker, taking a step out and committing to something, me naturally I shift away from that, sort of balance the court. So I'm swinging out wide. If I see the ball going tight to the line, close to the antenna, my blocker's hands are diving into that line. I'm naturally going to move away into the left side, into the seam, into the middle of the
That's tough to
court.
do,
It is
to
tough to
move
do.
away
Mhm.
from your natural instinct, because like as a defender, we probably both
Mhm.
want to like
Go
go
towards the hard
towards where we
driven.
know that they're
Mhm.
trying to hit, and
Yeah.
you have to release to the opposite for the like just in case
Yes.
ball. Yeah.
Yes. Because if you're doubled up on either hard swing, hard angle, like you're going to get burned somewhere. But the thought process behind it is I'm going to block. If they hit this ball hard, I'm going to block it. So what we're trying to cause with that is a off, let's say they wrist away. That's the ball you dig. So if I have a small block and they're just blasting in the angle, even if it's directly at me, like how many balls do you dig that are hit full speed directly at you? Like
Right. It feels
some.
good when you do, but it's
It
not
sure
that
does.
frequent.
It sure does. But you don't dig many of those.
Yeah.
So the thought process is let the block take away that swing and get into a position where you can then dig the diggable ball. So let's say they hit an off speed or like a chop at the last second, something slower. That's the ball you want to be on. And I think I see it a ton at the local level for blockers is, oh, we're blocking line.
Ugh,
So the
get
the
away
blocker
from that,
ends up
everybody.
on the
Yeah.
line and then they have 4 feet into the angle. It's like
Yep.
anybody can side out with that much space. Like just teeing off into the angle. You don't even have to hit the ball hard, just away from the defender, or they just hit the ball extremely hard, no spin. You're not digging that ball. So
Hmm.
it's like you want to be a more conservative blocker. You want to go more into the seams. Don't give up so much space. Just get right in their midline and take away what you see. That's
Yeah, that's the first thing that we go to with blockers is like
mhm.
learning how to take a charge.
Yep,
Wherever that hitter is
exactly.
traveling, like get
Mhm.
your chest right in the middle and make sure that if they were to keep going forward in the route that they're going, that they're going to jump straight into you and knock you over. Like that's
Yep.
got to be your first ability to do that instead of thinking about what's behind you. I think a lot of
Yeah,
people think about the space behind them instead of what's
that's
like
a
right
really
in
good
front of
point.
them.
Yeah, that's a really good point. They're thinking about what am I taking away, as far as court space goes, but the hitter I call it angle of approach. So if you're looking at their angle of approach, like they're going to tell you where they're going to hit the ball the hardest. And some people have some crazy crossbody lines or thumb downs or whatever, but for the most part, people hit their hardest ball in line with their approach. So if they're wide and the ball's inside and they're coming in at an aggressive angle, you get in front of that aggressive angle. You're taking away their hardest swing. So that's, as far as read blocking goes, that is super key. I like taking a charge though.
Yeah.
That's a good way to think of it. Like just getting in front of him and going up.
Yeah. At least,
But
if somebody's injured, they can't jump or you want to cut their jumps during practice. Like
mhm.
that's at very least that you can get that footwork going late,
Interesting.
develop it.
Mhm.
Um, yeah, and you see that at the high level too, where people are doing a read block, and I think the Norwegians were. I'm not going to say the first, but maybe the
Mhm.
best to really expose it. And
Mhm.
if you really watch a lot of film, you'll see that sometimes defenders don't move to the line
Mhm.
or the angle.
Nope.
They just sit middle, and their choice is to dig all of the shots, and
Yep.
they're like the only thing that
100%.
they might dig is if they get blasted with a high ball to the middle of the court. But
Yeah.
I think people always the addiction to like needing to be either in the line or the cross.
Mhm.
More players, it would serve them if they floated in the middle, chilled, and then
Yeah.
just said, "I have no responsibility for hard swings. I'm just going to get stuff that goes high and over a block."
Yep. That's the ball. We run that a ton. We run it a
Mhm.
ton. Like it's big athletic blocker. And again, am I going to dig the hard driven ball in the right spot? Like maybe, but I'm no. If there's a ball that goes up and down, I know I have a chance to transition. That's my thought process. Like
Right.
if I can get to that shot, that's great. And at the pro level, if I can get 3 of those a game, that's good. I'm not worried about digging 3 beams. It hits a
Mhm.
bomb at me. I'm not digging 3 absolute crushed balls in a
Right.
game. Like if I'm lucky, that'd be an awesome, awesome stat. But I
Yeah,
can
the ones
dig
that
three
we dig is
shots.
when it makes them hit like 87, 90% because they were
Yes.
just slightly off or they second guess themselves, and that's
Hmm.
when that's now the opportunity.
Exactly. Yeah. The,
Yeah.
the diggable balls. We want the diggable balls. We don't want the perfect in system. My blocker's on the line and I'm looking at 6'8" coming at me this way. Like I'm not worried about that ball.
Here you go.
This one. Yeah. One hand up, one hand down.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Nice. All right. Well, Steve, are there any tools or equipment that are for you absolute must-haves when you're at practice, at a match, on the road, at home, or at the gym?
Um, I would say as far as recovery goes, like I have a new hypervolt that I think makes a huge difference. Um, it's the hypervolt plus or
Percussion gun.
something. Yes, yes.
Okay.
Um, it was a gift from my girlfriend for I think my birthday, maybe.
Nice.
So yeah, so she got me this, and I've noticed a huge difference as far as sort of that onset soreness that comes on. Like if you use the gun regularly while you're playing, or like when I'm coaching, I'll be on the bench, like they were gunning my shoulder, and I
Mhm.
think I think there's something to it as far as the recovery aspect, because I feel fantastic
Yeah.
post getting that. As far as like implements, the only thing I say for a lot of footwork stuff, I really, when I first started using a weight vest after properly like acclimating to it, like you don't want to
Right.
just throw on 20 pounds and like blow your knees out, obviously. But if you you put on like a little 10-pound vest for some of your footwork stuff, like, dropping to a knee to pass or working on a sideline ball or the blocking footwork and a little jump. Like some of the more conservative movements where you're not diving with 20 pounds on your back,
Right.
obviously.
Don't play a
I
full match.
noticed,
Don't go through a full
don't.
practice with your weight vest. I tried that in college, and my coach was like, "Nope."
So I did it in college, and I do it to this day because I've acclimated to it. So like, 15-pound, it's a tight vest too, so it fits well.
Yeah.
Um, I played a couple tournaments in Texas while wearing one without telling people, just because like I think it's, for me, that was part of my growth, right?
Mhm.
But if you want to make sure that you start moving quicker in some of these footwork areas in the sand, I think adding a little bit of that weight and patterning that same ball over and over again, then you take that vest off and the movement is now patterned way faster. So as far as doing certain setting drills or, defensive footwork, getting into position, whatever it is, adding a little bit of weight made me learn things a lot faster. But I also
Yeah.
lift a lot of weights, and I'm, very body conscious. So if you're not
Yeah,
a very,
don't get out there, and if you're not
yeah,
lifting weights, if you can't,
yeah,
maybe squat your body weight, like
yes,
this is not the time for you
no,
to throw in a
no,
weight vest and try a bunch of plyometrics
no,
drills. Like you need that
no,
base of strength first.
yes. But I would say that was the only implement I'd use. We don't use a ton of stuff at practice, just a box and shoulders.
Nice. And when you go to a
Yeah.
tournament, is there any like secret goodies, secret gummy bears? Do you always have to have a Red Bull, a C4, or you just whatever's around?
I'm very caffeinated typically.
Mhm.
Before a tournament, I will have probably, like, I would say 150 to 200 milligrams of caffeine, like whether that's coffee or like a Celsius or whatever that is.
Mhm. And for those people
I
out there, like in a coffee, just one black cup of
mhm,
coffee, like a regular size cup of coffee, you're looking at somewhere around 80 to 100 milligrams. So
mhm.
so it's
Yeah,
probably
big,
like a
like a
large cup of coffee, or just
mhm,
maybe two regular sizes. So
yeah. And everybody's different as far as, caffeine tolerance goes,
right,
but I think I play better when I'm, a little bit more tuned in, and caffeine gets the blood flowing, the dilation, and I think it's important for me. It's just
mm,
something I do now. I think it's important. Other than that, like, we don't eat a ton. Like, tournament day is just carbs and water and salt. Like, saltines literally is like, or like a loaf of bread. Like, I'll go home and just eat like literally saltine crackers. Like, what, 107 degrees outside in Texas, and we're playing,
oh,
and I'll eat, a sleeve of saltines while I'm playing, and
mm,
it's that's it. Like, just a sleeve, like one of those, two of those, and water, and my
that's funny.
balance is good. I have carbs, I have energy. It's very basic, but
Yeah,
there's no like secret. It's just carbs, salt, water. I think is the
yeah.
most important thing.
And people, yeah, people the way they snack sometimes, like I want to eat light, so then they bring a salad, and it's just like
No.
you have zero
Mm-mm.
energy for all of today.
Yeah.
The carbohydrate intake is massively
Yeah.
important for the large majority of everyone.
Mm-hmm.
If you want to perform that day, and then the night before, a little bit carb loading helps to
Mm-hmm.
get that carbohydrate store, but during the
Yeah.
day, fruit. If you want to
Mm-hmm.
go bread and saltines, hey, you're getting
That's it.
carbs. Yeah. Um,
And I try to stay away from. I don't do any like sugar or anything typically, but like especially when I'm playing, like I think the one time I had full body cramps, I drank like two or three Gatorades.
hmm.
Never again. Never again. It's just personally. 100 degrees in Texas, and like you got to be careful with what
Yep,
you're putting in your body as far as that stuff goes, and everybody's different. But
true.
I would be hard pressed to drink a Gatorade while playing again, like a sugar one.
Nice.
Having
Um,
PTSD.
are there any projects that you're working on right now? And for everybody who's just trying to reach out, wants to follow you, wants to see your journey and see what you're up to, uh, where should they follow you? Should they reach out on Instagram? Uh,
Yeah, I'd
you have
say
any
Instagram.
websites, emails?
That's Instagram typically sees it first, and no, there's not a. I don't have any websites running or anything. Just currently still chasing the now yellow and black volleyball, and um, we're also, so me and Pete are going to be playing. for an NVA team, which is the indoor league in the U.S.
Cool.
So we're playing indoor. If you guys want to check that out too, they have a pretty cool stream up.
Are you guys coming out to California for this tournament next week?
Nope.
I know Southern Exposure is here because Chad.
Oh yeah,
Mercado
so that's the one. That's the one.
We're gonna go watch it.
That's exactly the one. So that'll be in. We're flying into Ontario, and
okay.
I forget, San Bernardino is where it is. So that's where the actual facility is. So
yeah, we'll be there at least for one game. So we'll see you there.
And is Chad playing this year? Or is he?
Yep. Yeah, he's staying with me. He's now working for Better at Beach, and he's like taking over social media.
Awesome.
And he's just a great dude. For anybody who hasn't met Chad Mercado in the volleyball world, like you got to go hang out with him.
Yeah, he's good people.
Cool. For those people who are listening, Steve's Instagram is OSCHITROSCHITZ. Roschitz. Oh, I get it. I get it.
There you go.
I just got that for the first time. And we will, of course, include it in the show notes so that you guys can go ahead and follow him and click on his links. But Steve, thanks for the talk, man. Nice getting to know you. Nice hearing about your journey. And we'll see you on the sand.
Awesome. Thanks for having me on.
Later.
Later, man.